Yeah, thanks for inviting me, thanks for having me. I'm going to talk about wearable technologies and also a bit about quantified self, which relates pretty much to wearables.
Did you put it on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Test.
Test. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
So, okay. So on the image here you can see some of the pioneers in wearable computing. In the middle, on the left, it's Steve Mann. He's the inventor of wearables and the inventor of augmented reality. So he's been wearing a computer for about 20 years now in front of. So he's wearing a camera in front of his eye, and behind the camera there is a small screen, and the image from the camera is processed via a computer, so he can actually change his view on the real world. For example, he can change contrast, what he likes to do when the sunlight is too bright, he can change the contrast, or if the characters are too small, he can use a zoom and read small text. And on the right side, in the middle, it's Thad Sterner, who is one of the main engineers at Google Glass. So he's a leading computer scientist, but also one of the most important advisors for Google Glass. And he says, with a computer at your head, you get much faster access to data. So it usually takes about maybe 2 seconds or below 2 seconds to do a voice search and get the feedback right on the glass. And he says this is really important for Google, because if you want to do a search and you have to pull out your smartphone from the pocket and then unlock it and all that stuff, then you need more than 2 seconds, and this is like a psychological barrier where you're not using it as much as it is shorter. So I'm going to talk about those guys a little bit later, but I also brought some data about myself which I want to use to introduce myself. So this is what I've been doing with my time in Q1 2014. I'm a Trendscout at a company called Wearable Technologies AG. It's a marketing platform for the wearables industry. So we do conferences in San Francisco, in Munich, and we've been doing this for quite some time. So any company that is building wearables finds a good audience and a good network with this company. But I'm also doing some consulting work aside as a freelancer. And I'm writing a blog, I Grow Digital. It's about wearables, self-tracking, quantified self, data, and I'm also writing about that stuff for computer magazines such as CT. And the numbers that you can see here, it's not a guesswork. Actually, I'm logging everything that I do in my calendar. So this is a week in, I don't know. But it's not that hard to do it, because I plan my weeks ahead and I have like the same routine every day. I do sports every day in the morning. I try to have lunch every day at the same time. And so these are recurring events. And so I only have to add my work, fill the gaps, and sometimes adjust the planned events because I need a little bit longer to get out of the bed, or I need to skip lunch or whatever. But it's not so hard, and I can use a tool to aggregate the data from my calendar, and that's how I got to this chart. And this is an example for self-tracking for quantified self, which is something that I'm also investing quite some time. Did you hear about quantified self? Who's familiar with the term, with the movement? Okay. So actually, Quantified Self is a meetup similar than this. It's a meetup where people meet to discuss self-tracking and personal data. And I founded the groups in Munich and Berlin and try to promote that movement here in Germany. And what we do is that we share data and projects that we use to either analyze ourselves, find something out about us, or improve ourselves. And usually we have like a meetup like this here, and we have short talks where people use that kind of questions to present their learnings. And this format started in 2008 in the San Francisco Bay Area, Nowadays it's 160 Meetup Groups all over the world, and yeah, these are some of the topics people are discussing. So it's all about data, and I'm talking a bit about quantified self because it heavily connects with wearables. So this is data that I'm tracking. So there's an easy part and there's a hard part with self-tracking. So you can use sensors to measure sleep. For example, my watch, it measures when I sleep or how much I move. And you can get data about your weight. There are scales out which have a built-in Wi-Fi, so you can upload the data to a server. And environmental sensors. So there's a lot of innovation going on in the passive self-tracking. For example, I just got a new toothbrush from Wearable, which is a Bluetooth toothbrush, and you can track how much you brush your teeth. But it's really a cool product because it's not only about tracking and that kind of data, but you can bring the app to your dentist, and your dentist can say, oh, you're lazy with your teeth in the back, and you shouldn't only focus on the ones in front. So he can program the app, so while you're brushing your teeth, the app shows you where you should brush and how long you should brush and stuff like that. And it's really well made. I had the old Wearable without the Bluetooth before, and the app also uses the microphone. So when I'm at my girlfriend's place and I have the old one there, it uses the microphone to track whether I'm brushing my teeth with the non-Bluetooth toothbrush. Yeah. So quite interesting. Or something else I just got is like a Wi-Fi plant sensor. I'm growing herbs on my balcony because I like herbs for cooking, and so really interesting because it gives me an alarm when I need to water them. So the whole automated tracking is growing really fast and it plays a big role in wearables. But there's also a part right now which is not automated. So you've seen how I track my time, and this is what they call active self-tracking, because users actually have to put in the data. And there are many more interesting things like body measurements. So that's what I do, measuring my body and habits and alcohol levels. I have a Bluetooth breathalyzer, so I can make experiments with different drinks and see how my body reacts to that. And to give you an idea of what quantified self typically looks like, I brought a few slides about my personal experience, then we move on to the wearables. So at the beginning of the year, I wanted to lose weight. And I did some research. I came up with a certain kind of diet, and I call it the lazy ass good karma superfood diet. And actually, it's a vegan high fat diet. So here on the slide you can see that I'm getting about 50% of my calories from fat, which goes quite easy if you eat nuts and stuff like that. And for example, I'm having a coffee with butter and coconut oil in the morning, and I blend it, so it tastes quite creamy and it gives me 400 calories out of pure fat in the morning, and then I use fat for cooking and eat nuts and stuff like that. And so really nice, and never feel hungry, because from the carbs you usually get that spike in your blood sugar levels, and then you feel hungry again after the spike is gone, maybe after 1 hour or so. So really turned out well for me. I'm also doing a little bit of workout, and so this is what changed. Actually, it's only the data from the Q1, and so the weight loss continued, and you can also see my muscle growth over the time, but with more weight loss, the muscle went back again, or at least the circumference. Maybe it's not the muscle, but for me, a really convenient way to lose weight with the laziest good karma superfat diet, superfood. Yeah. So yeah, that's the type of data that you can measure with either wearables or other kinds of connected sensors, or maybe even a spreadsheet. And now I want to talk about wearables. So those guys here, that was in the 80s at the MIT, and if you read stories about them, it's quite interesting, because they were, for example, carrying their own antennas when they moved to another university. They set up their own Wi-Fi network, because there was no public Wi-Fi, and they needed, for their wearable computing, they needed wireless data. And so really crazy stories about those guys. But also in the 80s, there was the first wearable product, 1984, shoe from Adidas with a built-in pedometer. Actually, it was not such a big hit. But the idea of activity tracking, I mean, it took 30 years and a new form factor, and now it's quite familiar. So who of you wears an activity tracker? Okay, not so popular here, whatever. But it is popular. So this is the most popular example of wearables, and the whole category is much broader. So this is like a landscape of where you can wear wearables and what type of wearables there are. For example, smartwatches, those activity trackers, cameras, but also GPS trackers or augmented reality headsets. And then there's something that we call on the body. The other thing was close to the body. If you have it really on the body, this might be like a wearable patch, something that you stick to the skin and it can measure data, or like an insulin pump for the people who have diabetes and they need to inject insulin. You get like automated pumps which make their life a little bit more comfortable. Hearing aids is a big example of the on the body wearables, and there's also a category which is in the body. So for example, there are smart pills which you digest, and then on their way through your body they can measure things, or they have a built-in camera, or there's something which is not out there. It's a dental hearing system, so like a tooth implant with Bluetooth. You can connect it to your smartphone. It uses bone conduction, so it can actually pull audio into your ears via bone conduction. And also, it's a microphone, so this is like the most convenient hands-free speakerphone you might use, but it's not there yet. So, of course, for the whole wearables, smartphone is really important. We wouldn't have wearables without the smartphone. For example, with the built-in sensors, we have several aspects. For example, the accelerometer, which is built into the smartphone originally to rotate the screen from landscape to horizontal mode. The price for that kind of sensor shot so fast that you could use them in other kinds of products, but you can also track a lot of interesting data with a smartphone. And then, of course, it's about connectivity that allows you to use all kinds of Bluetooth devices or other networks. And now the smartphone more and more becomes like a data hub. So maybe you've heard about the Health Kit or Google Fit or things like that, which want to integrate all kind of health data into the OS of the smartphone, which makes it much easier to use the data. For example, if I'm wearing a pedometer and I'm tracking my activity and I'm also tracking my calories, then it's much more realistic if my calorie counter knows how much I've been moving. Then it can say me, oh, you've been running for 2 hours, so you can eat a fat burger. But if I hadn't been running, then I wouldn't be allowed to eat that burger. So that's why we need the data to come from one part to the other, and that's what Google and Apple are all about with Google Fit and Health Kit. And so right now we are entering the next stage with activity tracking and all kinds of wearables. So I want to talk about a few things, what I see as the top trends. So a big part of it will be a better design, because what they did, just companies like Fitbit, they used the accelerometer, which became really cheap through the 100 millions of smartphones, and then made a cheap product. And now it's about design, because people don't like to wear those plastic devices. Even I don't like to wear them, but yeah, anyway, I wear them sometimes. So another thing is that they are getting smarter, because many people lose interest in wearing such a bracelet which only takes steps, and you have like a learning curve. So in the beginning you say, oh wow, I'm motivated, I'm more active, but after 2 months or so it's gone, and that's why you might want to use the device to remote control your smartphone, or use it as a watch, or what everybody needs more value than only counting your steps. Then the whole user experience of that kind of device isn't that good so far. For example, charging is a really big hurdle, because if you have to charge your wristband every 4 days, I mean, we charge our smartphone every day, and it sucks, and we don't want to do that with the wearables again. So in this example, Intel has developed an inductive charging bowl, where you just place, here it's a hearing app. So the idea is, at night you don't wear it, you have to put it somewhere, so you can put it right into the charging bowl, and the other day it's full of energy and you don't have to fiddle with the cable. Another big trend is more context, and so what the first movers have been using is only the 3D accelerometer, but if you also use like a gyroscope, which is also part of the smartphone, then you can, for example, track the air time of a free rider. So this guy, he can track how much time he spent in the air, what's the G-force that appears on his body, and how often he jumps and things like that. Or you can use it in the gym to measure your strength, and there are also products being developed which automatically recognize certain exercises like sit-ups, push-ups, and so you can track your repetitions and how you progress over time. So really interesting what you can do with more sensors, and a good example for what you can do with more sensors is the Basis band. This is the tracker which I'm wearing most of the time because it's the most advanced on the market today. So Basis band said we want to build a high-tech tool, so they have like an optical heart rate sensor, so the green LEDs, they shine on the light, and the heart from every heartbeat produces a shock wave which is visible on the skin, and the optical cell here in the middle that measures the reflection from the light and thus can detect the heartbeat. And in that case it's not so accurate because they only want a rough idea of what's your heart rate for kind of big data mining, because they also use a galvanic skin resistance sensor which actually describes the amount of moisture on your skin, how much you sweat. And then there's a thermometer, and on the upper side there's also a thermometer, I don't know where exactly it is. So they can measure how much heat dissipates from your body, the energy that you burn. And using all the numbers, they can get much more insights. So the interface from Basis is built to help you building new habits. So when you buy it, it just says you have to wear it. And if you wear it for a few days, you earn points. And once you earn points, you can set goals. For example, step it up means I should take 10,000 steps each day. And you see, I get it done quite often. Then also get more sleep, which is so hard to achieve. And for example, they use all that data to really figure out where I'm sleeping, because when I'm falling asleep, my heart rate changes, and also the body temperature changes. So all the other trackers, they only use the accelerometer and say, oh, I don't move any longer, maybe I'm sleeping. But Basis actually knows, because I could also be reading a book and my hand isn't moving. And that's why they're building on their different data streams. So they also can figure out when I'm cycling the bike from, I'm not sure what it is, maybe the difference from the thermometers in comparison with the accelerometer, so that they know, okay, it's windy and stuff like that. So really advanced, and there are more insights you can track. For example, if you want to motivate yourself to get up every once in a while, this girl says I should get up every hour, I think, burn more calories, move it, stuff like that. And then, for example, this is something that I find really interesting, because you see my calendar that I want to have like a regular lifestyle. Regular rising means I want to get up every morning at 6:30, so I only managed to do that 3 times this week. And consistent bedtime, I want to sleep like 7 hours, I should go to bed. at 11:30 I never sleep 7 hours, or maybe once. So this is what I learned from Basis, and I'm not looking up the data quite often. It's not that important, but the cool thing is they're sending me an email, so I still get feedback on what I'm doing, and this helps me to understand, okay, you really sleep too little, and for example, I've been thinking about my sleep environment and how I can improve my sleep. So I'm really a huge fan of the Philips Hue. It's a connected light bulb system, and I can control this via my smartphone. And so I use the system to help me live a more natural life. So in the morning at 6:30, my lights go on, like an artificial sunrise. Then at 9 o'clock, they get really bright because I should start to work then. At 25 past 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they go off because I want to have a nap then. And so this continues in the afternoon, the light gets warmer, so it's like the sunlight which goes from cold to warm over the course of the day, and I try to simulate that, and then it goes off at 10 before 11. So I'm really getting a trigger to go to bed, and even then maybe I'm not going to bed, but at least it helps me, it reminds me. So this is what I've been doing with the Basis, but I could also look into my sleep stats and see how much light sleep I get, how much REM sleep and stuff like that. And I haven't played with it so much because I've been testing sensors in the past and they're not that accurate. And Basis now claims they got some improvement, they made a study, and I also got 2 different kind of sensors in my bed. So they also measure my sleep, but they are both in beta. So I'm planning to do experiments with different supplements and stuff like that, and really see how I can get more REM sleep or deep sleep. This is something that an advanced sensor like this can also offer. And you can see your heart rate, for example, over the course of the day. So you can see at night the heart rate is quite low, and then it gets a little bit higher. And I don't know why it's higher and whatever, but you could do experiments and maybe try to link the data. For the moment there is no API to download that, but it would be fun to match that with the calendar, and then you see, oh, I've been talking to my boss, how was the heart rate and stuff like that. So all those things we've just seen were single purpose devices. So they are about health, about sports and stuff like that. And what we see coming up now are new computer platforms like smartwatches. And so I think there are 2 kind of approaches that we will see in the next few months. So, I mean, Google is a really great company in services, and that's why they have Android Wear, which builds heavily on Google now. So once they figure out that you want to take a certain route, they can send you information if there is a traffic jam on your typical route to work or stuff like that. So for Google and the whole Android now and Android Wear ecosystem, this will be about context and bringing information to the user, which might be relevant in a certain moment. And then of course then there are use cases like paying, or I think this here is a boarding pass. If you want to fly, you can have your boarding pass there and just check through. Also PayPal is working on paying, so you can just send the receipt to the watch and then accept. And then I think there will be another approach which is more hardware focused, and I think we're going to see that one by companies like Apple, which will build heavily on sensors and try to get into the health thing. This image is a video from Samsung. They also announced the Digital Health Initiative, and for example here they have many different optical sensors, same like Basis but more power and different wavelengths, because they want to get the reflections from different layers of the skin, so they can maybe measure your blood glucose level, which is really important for diabetics, but also if it's standard for everybody, it's really helpful because if you're in an early stage of diabetes, then you can reverse that. And if you only know that, which many people don't, you have the power to take action. And so I think, yeah, this is the other approach. Wearables that build heavily on health-related features, and I think this will be really interesting in October. Then, of course, there are other types like glasses, which are computer platforms you might use to build all kinds of apps for. So, for example, you could use a running app which lets you race against someone who's in another city. Or you can race against yourself, so maybe, yeah, I'm the blue one, and this one is maybe my metrics from yesterday, so I've been faster yesterday and I can race against myself, or a friend in another city, or a friend who's run in another city at another time, whatever. So one application, but also in healthcare, it offers a lot of benefit, because the benefit of the heads-up display is fast access to data, or I do not feel like I need access to data within 2 seconds, and I feel like, oh shit, if I would have faster access to data, my life would be different. But there are some people that really have those kind of jobs which require faster access. What I find much more interesting is like the real augmented reality, and this is a product which the guy from the MIT, Steve Mann, has been helping to build. So this one has see-through displays and lots of sensors and cameras and stuff like that, and you can really change the way you see the world. So I mean, they're working on object recognition, for example. If I cannot read the text here, I can zoom in, or if the book is upside down here, and I cannot read the text, I can cut out the object, like virtually, and then in my view I can rotate it so that I can read it, and much more stuff like that. So really interesting, and they have cool videos, Meta. You should check them out, because they really want to change the whole augmented reality stuff. Then of course there's also a few other things. I mean, the whole wearable computing is getting closer and closer to the body. For example, if you have smart textiles, you can measure breathing rate, muscle tensions, for example. Here you can see how a person is doing yoga, and the application could analyze whether the angle of the joints is right, and the movement is right, or if the muscle is too tense and stuff like that. So really interesting, the closer you get to the body. So Intel also went into a cooperation with AIQ, which is doing smart clothing, and they also developed a baby suit which helps tracking baby vitals, because I don't know how big the percentage is, but a certain number of babies die from, I think, when they lie on their head and they don't get air, and there are a few other things which you can really avoid. And with such a suit you can actually track vitals and then interact if there's a problem. And it uses the Intel Edison processor. I'm not sure whether you've heard about the Edison processor. And this is something which is really interesting for the whole wearables industry, because we have the problem with energy demand, or even the amount of energy that you can carry on your body is not that high, and so they integrated a really powerful CPU and a Wi-Fi chip and something else I forgot. So it's like highly integrated, and makes it much easier to build wearables. I think there's still work on it, but so the whole wearable computing will see a shift in power once the numbers rise, and things like Edison come to the market, same as we have with the smartphone, if you compare first generation with what we have now. So if you get a little bit closer to the body, then you get even better data. This is a smart patch, so you can just stick it on your skin and have it there for 2 weeks, and it measures all the vitals. Textile could also measure like ECG, like heart rate, brain waves and stuff like that. And the good thing is that you don't have so much noise in the data, because with the typical watch, I mean, I'm shaking my hand, so the sensors, they are not so close to my skin, and the data is noisy, and that's what you can improve with such a thing. So, for example, Motorola has patented such a patch which you can wear at your collar, and it uses or it works as a microphone. So if your voice quality is bad, you can use that here to pick up data. And the interesting thing is that even if you're just thinking in words, your muscle adapts to that. So you might also use that to track your muscle movement when you're thinking about words and maybe understand them. Then, of course, you might want to get even more closer to the body, or where the vitals actually happen. So this is an implant which helps people to track ECG, and it's for people with a high risk of cardiovascular disease. And I mean, the idea is that you constantly monitor the ECG, and that you can see trends, and if a person will have a heart attack, you know in advance, and can warn them and send them to the hospital. And even if it sounds a little bit strange for us maybe, there's been a study about the acceptance with elderly people, and 30% of the elderly people, 65 plus, think that it's totally okay for them to wear such an implant if they get a benefit with their chronic disease or with their high-risk diseases. And I see it the same way, because I don't want to have a heart attack when I'm older, and I don't want to get Parkinson and stuff like that. I think we can avoid all those things if you use technology. That's where I think we're moving into. And then, of course, it's not only about having one of those devices like wristband or glass or whatever. So if you look at it from the wearables perspective, there will be like a whole network of different devices, maybe in your shoe, at your wrist, in your glasses, maybe smart contact lenses, and they will seamlessly work together. So if you use the sensors, you can use, for example, a pressure sensor from the shoe and send the data to your Bluetooth earbuds, and then give you feedback on whether your posture is good, or whether you're making mistakes when running, if your pressure distribution isn't right. And so the whole body will be enhanced, or might be enhanced, with different kind of wearables which will then interact. For example, that is a product from a company here from Munich. It's called the Dash. It's a Bluetooth headset, and they use the system for listening to music, and Bluetooth speakerphone for phone calls, but it also has a built-in optical sensor for heart rate tracking. And this is really interesting, because you might want to use the data on the smartphone or somewhere else, which shows the idea of that kind of network. So yeah, some people have been asking whether the whole wearables is a trend or if it's only a hype. So in my opinion, this is clearly a trend, and we've been talking about a lot of different things. So here you can see the categories which might be popular in the next year. So the red and the orange one, this is the sports trackers and the healthcare. These are the main use cases, and this is where the whole wearable thing makes sense for people right now, because they really understand the benefit. They don't understand it so much that they need Google now at their wrist. But this is like the most important categories, and then we have the smartwatches here catching up over the next years, and the smart glasses, the blue column, will never reach that potential, because yeah, it's not important for private people or not that much. So yeah, it's a lot about health. Even if you look about health applications, you see this is a really strong growth over the next few years. It's like the turnover with mHealth applications, and it's like 80 or 90% growth over the next few years, which builds also on the data of wearables. But in the end, I think it's not about whether you want to improve your health and track all that stuff. I think it will be part of a new lifestyle. For example, I like my lighting system to adapt to my personal rhythm. That when I wake up in the morning, or shortly before I wake up, then the light should help me get out of the bed. And if I have like a stressy day, then it should have my artificial sunset a little bit earlier, so I can go to bed and stuff like that. So I think in the future it's all about wellness and lifestyle, and if you come home, your house already knows what you're planning to do and what kind of light you need, what music, what flavor in the air. Also the biometrics will be used for authentication. So if you have a smartwatch which measures your heartbeat, you can use heartbeat as a unique identifier to unlock your house or your car or whatever. So for me, the whole wearables and sensors will become like a platform technology where you don't have to be interested in health or anything like that to use them. But same as with the accelerometer from the smartphone today, all the kind of sensors will be used for improved product experience. For example, Spotify is working on a project to improve the predictions about what kind of music people want to hear. And they're using heartbeat and body temperature, and by that they can figure out whether you want to have aggressive music or calm music and stuff like that. And in the end, it's only a comfort feature, because today the Spotify radio, in my opinion, sometimes isn't as good as I would want it to be, and that's why we are using much more data in the future, I think, to improve the experience with products. So that's my presentation about wearables. I want to give a few insights into contest the Wearable Technologies AG is running. They are doing Wearable Technologies Innovation World Cup, which is for startups which build wearables, and then there's also IoT and M2M World Cup, which is for IoT startups which don't necessarily have to build hardware. I mean, the wearables is more about the hardware, but the IoT is all kinds of IoT products and services. So I brought a few brochures. I will put them somewhere later, and you can pick some if you're interested in that, and you can win an interesting prize and present at the conference and stuff like that. But it's all in the pamphlet. And then, if you want to know more about the whole self-tracking, I invite you to join the Quantified Self Meetup Group. That's where we talk about coffee with butter and how to lose weight and improve sleep and all that stuff. And we will meet, I think, in August again. We haven't decided when is the next meetup, but we also have a meetup group, same as this one here. So if you're interested in that, then please sign up. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
I don't know if anyone has any questions for Florian.
Yes, indeed. Well, yes, it's time before.
I have one question, because all those wearable applications seem to focus on healthy people. What I'm really more interested in is a vision for wearables to help those who are not healthy or not in state. So do you know some applications, or do you know some, I don't know, product ideas?
not sure, did you hear the question? Or I just repeat, he's been asking about wearable applications for health, because many of those were from the fitness or from the area where people are still healthy. So in my opinion, it's a continuum. I mean, you might be healthy in one part of your life if you get older, but then there's something wrong with your back, with your feet. So I tested a sensor which measures your posture. So this was like a belt, and it tracked my posture, and it was measuring whether I was slouching. And now they're bringing the next version, which is like a clip that you can have here, and it vibrates every time you slouch, and so it reminds you, because usually you're unaware of your posture. It can help, but for example, the implant or even strap bands with ECG sensors can help to avoid a heart attack. So there are many things coming up. If you remember the graphs, you see that healthcare will be bigger in 5 years than now. Right now the problem is that it's so regulated that startups cannot address the issue because it needs too much time, too much money. But once, I mean, startups like Fitbit or Jawbone, they received hundreds of millions of funding to do their business, and once they grow, and other companies as well, and that's why Samsung and many others are moving into that space as well, then we can address the issues of healthcare. But I mean, then it's about accuracy and reliability, because you're not only counting steps for steps. It's not a problem of heart attacks. You really want to avoid that. And so I think there are really interesting things coming up. Yeah, like for example, one company is working on a patch which tracks whether you actually take your pill. So the pill has kind of a sensor inside. So once it's in your stomach, it realizes that it's in your stomach, and then sends a signal to the patch, and the patch sends the signal to your smartphone, so you can track whether people are taking their pills right, which is a big problem because people don't, and then pills don't work. And I mean, this all sounds a little bit like Orwell or like Big Brother, but we will see how or if we can use that kind of tool, but they might be a big help for people. Yep.
I saw in your presentation you had something about electronic tattoos.
Yeah.
Could you give an example of what are those electronic tattoos?
I think what I've read is that you could really tattoo kind of a display ink. So you could have a display under your skin and then change your tattoo if you don't like the old one any longer. Just send a new image from your smartphone. But I'm not sure how if this will be on the market anytime soon.
Okay, danke schön, Florian. Thank you.